guys, Marian here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about God. I know it's a very big topic, but I wanted to share with you guys what Jewish people believe about God, as well as some of my personal opinions and how these things have changed throughout the ages compared with what we learned about God in the Torah and the Bible versus what Jewish people believe now. So I thought this would be a really interesting topic to talk about now because I just had this thought that in the middle of this global crisis pandemic, God must be pretty busy. Has he ever heard from people as much as he is hearing right now? So that just kind of got my head in the God space. So I thought it'd be really interesting to make a video about it for you guys. So I hope you like it. If you do, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more. I make videos all about being a mom and being a Jewish mom. And if you want to follow along with my everyday life as a Jewish mom, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Okay, so first I want to start with what the Jewish religion teaches us about God, what we hear about God in the Torah and the Bible, and then I'll go into some more modern interpretations of God as well as my own personal beliefs. And I would love, of course, to hear what you guys think about all of this and hear your thoughts down below. I know I also have a lot of viewers who are not Jewish, who may have very different beliefs or who don't believe in God at all, and I loved sharing and talking with you guys in the comments, so definitely feel free to chime in. So the first thing I want to say before I jump into all of that is that many Jewish people believe many different things about God and how God exists in this world and what role he plays. And there are also many Jews who do not believe in God. So unlike some other religions, Judaism does not, in all honesty, care that much what you believe in that sense. It's more about what you do, what you practice. If you observe the laws, if you participate in the Jewish community and in prayer, but it's not so focused on, well, do you believe such and such? So that is something that's very different about the Jewish religion. So that's not to say that there aren't explanations and stories and beliefs in God in Judaism. It's just that belief in God, if you talk to many rabbis, is not the be-all end-all. It's more about who you are as a person and how you act. Okay, so let's get into what the Torah says about God. What do we know about God from what's written in there? So first, we know that God is this mystical, unknowable thing. I don't even know the right noun to use. But that's what we're told, is that we can never truly know God. We can't know what he looks like. By the way, I'm going to use the pronoun he because that's just how I was raised. I don't believe that God is male or female. It's just how I talk. I totally get that that's a contradiction that I'm even using a pronoun, but again, that's how I was raised. That's how you'll see God referred to within Jewish and Hebrew writing with the pronoun he. But honestly, I believe God has a lot of feminine traits, and a lot of the natural world is very feminine. But we'll get into my beliefs later. So anyways, yes, I'm using he. Okay, so what we know about God from the Torah is that we can't know God. We know that God talks to Moses a lot, and he even says to him that he can't know him. He can't see his face, and he can't know his name. So we have these letters in the Torah that spell the name of God, but they are meant to not be able to be pronounced. So even we can't know what his real name is. One sentence that's spoken of, that he says about himself is, I am that I am, or I am who I am, or I am what I am. It's a little bit confusing in the English translation, but the Hebrew is Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which is, again, I am who I am. So it's almost like God cannot be quantified or qualified in the way humans understand things. We also know that the one major proponent of Jewish thought on God is that there is only one God, and that's very big, very clear in the Torah. Is God says, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me or besides me. So it's very much a singular theological religion that there's only one God, and God's oneness is a very central component to Judaism. So the idea is that God is everywhere but also one, and this is very different from religions who believe in multiple gods or that God takes multiple forms. Within Jewish thought, it's always that there's only one God. So the type of God that we see in the Torah is a bit different from what modern day Jewish people believe about God. And again, I'm sort of generalizing, of course. So in the Bible, God is a very judgmental figure, almost as a judge, and he's constantly weighing in on what people are doing and either taking them out of bad situations situations or putting them into good situations and sort of weighing their character. All the biblical stories involve God in a very direct way, and he often is letting people experience punishments or rewards based on his judgments of what they're doing, and all of that is encapsulated into Jewish law. So in biblical Judaism, we had this holy temple, which the remnants of still exist today in Jerusalem, and priests used to speak to God in this daily basis. There were rituals and sacrifices to God, and God played a much more direct role. Since the temples have been destroyed, Judaism has become a religion of prayer and words. That's why the holy book of the Torah is so important, and God exists in our lives in a very different way. So some of the more modern interpretations of how God behaves is that he set the world in motion, and after that he stepped back, and now we have the freedom of choice. So we are allowed to do bad things if we want to do them, or we're allowed to do good things if we want to do them, and we're not going to be struck down if we make a bad choice right in that moment. Many Jewish theologians also embrace science, and many Jewish people embrace science in that way and take the stories of the Torah more as an allegory and as lessons to be learned rather than an exact fact. So for example, the idea that God created the world in 7 days could also be interpreted as there was a divine spark that started creation, and it happened in a progressive way, but it didn't necessarily happen in 7 days, if that makes sense. So one of my favorite Jewish writers and theologians about this topic is Martin Buber, and his book is called I, Thou, I believe, and he wrote all about how God's energy exists within people, and that when you create a connection between someone, that's when you see the divine spark happen. And one of his most famous quotes, which I'll read to you guys, is, "When two people relate to each other authentically, God is the energy that surges between them." So it's this idea that there is this divinity within us, and we can bring it out up to the surface, or it can be simmering down below, and it's in our action and in our deeds and in our acts of loving kindness that God comes out. So one fable or story that's often told to Jewish children, which really encapsulates this idea, is that there's this flood happening in this town, and the water's rising and rising, and a man goes to the top of his house and is waiting to be saved from these flood waters. So first along comes a car, that can still drive through the small bit of water, and says to him, like, get in, I'm going to save you, you're going to be okay. And he says, no, I'm waiting for God will save me. So the car drives off, and the next one to come along is a boat, because the waters have risen so high, and the man in the boat says, come into my boat, let me save you, the floodwaters are coming. And he says, no, I'm waiting for God. And in the end, a helicopter comes, and he's on that last bit of rooftop before the water, totally overcomes him, and the helicopter throws down a line and says, let me save you. And he says, no, I'm waiting for God. And in the end of the story, he dies, and he meets God, and he says to God, why didn't you save me? I'm a very good person. I'm a righteous person. I waited for you and you didn't save me. And God says to him, oh, what did you think the car, the boat, and the helicopter were? So it's just kind of a, funny little story. But the point of it is that God exists within other people. God is part of the helpers and the people who do good and bring kindness into the world. So back to this idea of judgment, there is still a lot of Jewish thought that God is looking at what we do and weighing in on if we've done right or wrong. And you'll see that come up each year for the new year, Rosh Hashanah, which is coming up in September, and Yom Kippur, which is when we atone for our sins and ask God to forgive us. And it's said that our names are written in this book of life, and that God determines what the year ahead will be for us. So you definitely see components of this active God in the modern world in Jewish thought. And lastly, I want to share with you guys what my views on God are. So I was raised in with a lot of Jewish education and learning, and Judaism was very important in my home. But I would say I didn't have a concrete view of who God was or how exactly God worked in the world. And I do believe that that was on purpose, and that was to allow me to kind of figure it out on my own. And for me, my sort of understanding of God really formed, I would say, in my adult years. And the book that I read that really made most sense to me is called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I will link it down below. It's an amazing book, but basically it talks about that when you pray to God, it's not because you want God to like fly in from the sky and make some miracle happen, but that you are praying for your own strength. You're praying for friends to help you. It's again kind of relates to that idea that God is that divine spark when people interact and help each other. And so it just kind of explains how if you have this really strict view of God that He punishes and rewards when you do good or bad, then the world kind of doesn't make sense. And that can be a very scary feeling because you see very good people who bad things happen to, and this idea that like, oh, well, everything's happened for a reason, or God knows more than we do, the logic of it just kind of unravels, because there are some very good people who very horrible things have happened to. And Judaism is all about the here and the now in this world. So it's not about, well, maybe they're rewarded in the world to come, or they're sent to heaven or something like that. So we need to kind of make sense of how that can exist in this world that's not perfect. So this book, which again I'll link below, does a really beautiful job of explaining that we do live in this chaotic and free world, but that we can still find comfort and hope and an uplifting spirit by praying to God and by believing in God without relying on Him to kind of swoop in and make these judgments and miracles happen on a day-to-day basis. So that is my quick wrap up of God in Judaism. I hope that it was interesting for you guys. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Definitely give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to my channel to see more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!